Millionaire shocked. Everyone after seeing his maid carrying his son. In the silence of a mansion built of glass and steel, a cry shattered the night. A young maid dared to do what no one else could. She held the child close to her heart. The billionaire, frozen in grief,
That song,
stormed in with
my
fury,
wife used to sing it.
only to hear a lullaby, a song his late wife once sang. And in that moment,
My
time
son, he's
stopped.
laughing.
His son's cries turned into laughter. His first word, Daddy, broke the walls around
Daddy's
a
here.
father's heart. But love carries risk. To love her,
Will you be
did it
my
mean betrayal or past?
family?
Under a sky filled with stars trembling, he whispered, "Will you be my family?" This is not just a story of wealth. It's about loss healing and the miracle of love that makes strangers a family. Morning in New York wore a cold steel gray hue. Towering glass buildings loomed over rain-streaked sidewalks. Car horns hurried footsteps striking marble, and the bitter aroma of roasted coffee pulled the city forward into another day. On a modest corner, Jennifer stood beneath a mottled awning, clutching a worn canvas bag. Inside lay a faded resume, printed too many times to stay sharp a sandwich her mother had made the night before, and a hope as thin as paper. She was 25 dark circles shadowing her eyes from nights spent rocking a baby brother, her hands calloused from sweeping floors, washing dishes, and late-night shifts. At 15, her father had fallen suddenly like a great oak, struck down in a storm, leaving a void nothing could fill. From that day on, Jennifer had been both sister and silent father in their small town home. Soothing midnight cries, measuring salt just right for the soup standing guard at the door when storms raged. She dreamed less, but loved more. This morning rent was due. Her mother's medicine was running out. 3 siblings were about to start a new school year. Hope arrived through a neighbor's kindness, Mrs. Martinez, who always carried a bag of green vegetables and a gentle reminder. There's a family looking for a nanny. Very wealthy, but the baby is difficult. No one lasts more than a week. Try it, Jen. Jennifer nodded, not because she was confident, but because she had no way back. The driver carried her from the working-class blocks to the Upper East Side as though delivering a lost leaf into a storm. When the car door opened, the air itself was different, clean with pine-manicured trees cut with precision luxury cars lined neatly. Before her stood a fortress of modern architecture, glass and steel-rigid lines, an order so perfect it looked hostile. The doorman checked her name in the appointment book voice, crisp 38th floor. Private elevator. The doors slid open. A silver-haired woman greeted her hair in a neat bun, movements elegant, but eyes warm. "I'm Evelyn," she said, her smile like a soft woolen scarf. "Thank you for coming." Her hand rested lightly on Jennifer's arm, easing the trembling. Together, they walked through a sunlit hallway, reflections in the glass shrinking their footsteps into insignificance in this flawless space. The apartment opened like a magazine, spread dark wood floors, leather chairs, abstract art. Everything smelled of disinfectant, polished to erase all traces of life once lived. But beneath the perfection was a sound thin and piercing a baby's cry, sharp as needles, rising and falling with stubborn persistence. Adrian Evelyn spoke into the intercom, her voice both stern and gentle. "She's here." Silence answered. Only the glass wall across the room reflected the figure of a tall man standing by the window, staring at the veins of traffic below. He turned as they entered. Adrian Hale, 34, clad in a tailored gray suit. his face sharp, with the confidence of a man accustomed to making decisions in numbers. At first glance, Jennifer felt a chill like the building's steel facade. Yet when the light brushed across his eyes, she glimpsed a shadow of weariness, a crack carefully hidden. "Welcome," he said flat, and moved aside like a door that opened only to close at once. The cry clawed again through the silence. Riley Evelyn whispered his son. She led Jennifer up the white staircase, the banister cool as ice. The nursery opened into a child's paradise, cream-white crib toys, aligned perfectly, a minimalist rocking chair. Yet at the center was a 6-month-old face, flushed from crying, tiny fists, clenched chest heaving, as though begging for someone to return. Jennifer set her bag down and knelt by the crib. "Hello, little one," she whispered, her voice brushing against his cries like a gentle hand. She did not reach too quickly, but first smoothed the blanket, clearing a safe path for calm to return. Then she lifted Riley with practiced grace, the practiced arms of someone who had soothed countless siblings through sleepless nights. His head rested on her shoulder, her palm supporting his small spine, his fragile chest against the steady beat of her heart. At the doorframe, Adrian leaned, with hands in pockets, his gaze sharp, as if attending a meeting he had no faith in. He had watched this scene before nannies, with degrees and promises, who sang rock pleated, then left carrying their exhaustion, leaving behind the same cries. He waited for Jennifer to falter, for her hands to tremble, for her eyes to break in defeat. But Jennifer did not rush. She swayed gently, like a boat coaxing sleep across still waters. The air filled with the faint scent of faded detergent and freshly washed hair. She tilted her head, brushing her cheek against Riley's soft curls, and began to hum. A melody, simple no more than a handful of notes, fell like soft rain on a childhood roof. Her voice wasn't loud or showy, just enough for the music to slip between the cries, building a fragile bridge between fear and safety. Riley hiccuped once, then again. His cries softened fists, unclenched like weary petals. His eyelids trembled butterfly wings ready to close. Jennifer swayed to her own heartbeat lips, shaping a lullaby her grandmother once sang. When blackouts plunged their home into darkness, the family huddled around an oil lamp. "Shh, it's okay," she murmured, her breath brushing the curve of his tiny ear. Adrian straightened. He hadn't expected this. He wasn't ready. That melody, it struck a door in his heart. A door he had nailed shut long ago. Camilla had sung it each night when Riley was still in her womb, when the future stretched ahead like a straight road. He heard it now, and with it echoes of laughter in the kitchen, the clink of dishes, promises that never came true. "That song," Adrian whispered. The words shattered as they left his lips like crystal breaking on the wooden floor. Evelyn's eyes softened, understanding too well the tremor of old grief. Jennifer didn't look back. She only sang softer, slower, guiding Riley's breathing into hers. The cries dissolved thin as morning mist, revealing a small sun in the curve of his tired smile. In that instant, the house itself seemed to exhale. The rigid steel softened the light through the windows, turning warmer as if the sky itself had dimmed its edges. Adrian stepped back unsteady, as though searching for balance. His chest, tight for so long, split open half with memory, half with what was before him now. "He needs someone near Jennifer," whispered to Riley to herself. "Not machines or the smell of bleach, Just a hand in the right place. She sank onto the honey-colored rug, laying Riley on her lap, tracing soft circles on his belly. Riley inhaled deeply, then made a tiny sound. Not a cry, but a sigh of content. Adrian realized he stood too near the doorway, too far from his son. Slowly, he crossed into the room, cautious not to break the fragile air. He began ready to speak of rules, safety, the standards he had bound his life with. But as his eyes fell on Riley, quiet now, blue eyes watching the dance of light on the ceiling, every cold word turned useless. "You can come closer," Evelyn murmured, her hand steady on her son's back. "You're his father, Adrian." He sat, not on the designer rocking chair, but on the rug beside Jennifer. They sat in silence, close enough to hear each other breathe, distant enough not to touch the raw edges of grief. "Hello, Riley," Adrian said, startled by the change in his own voice. Lower, softer, stripped of command. Riley turned at the sound, lips moving. Jennifer smiled, lifting Riley's head slightly, bridging the distance between them. Outside, the city roared on at its own speed. But in this small room, time slowed enough for a powerful man to remember the weight of his own heart, enough for a poor girl to believe that miracles sometimes meant someone willing to sit on the floor. And when Jennifer stopped humming, the melody lingered, a warmth seeping into cold walls. Adrian tore his gaze from his son to Jennifer. That song, he whispered, fragile, as if disturbing what had just settled. "My wife used to sing it." Jennifer tilted her head, her eyes softer, deeper, as if she had seen water flowing beneath stone. She did not ask, did not probe the ghost of a woman gone. She only nodded, acknowledging the wound without pressing it bare. Downstairs, the coffee machine clicked on, reminding them that life continued. Evelyn excused herself to make tea, leaving the three alone in the quiet. And just when Jennifer thought the moment had slipped away like passing wind, Riley made a new sound, short, clumsy, but shifting the gravity of the room. Adrian froze. Riley repeated it clearer. Not a cry, not a sigh. A call. A door within a heart creaked open. And their story, the story of a cold house and a warm heart, began writing its first chapter. Chapter 1. The House of Tears. Adrian Hale's mansion. Upper East Side, a cold, rainy afternoon. Raindrops slid down the enormous glass panes of the modern building, leaving streaks like falling tears. Inside, the silence was so absolute that the sound of Jennifer's high heels echoed through the long hallway. She clutched her worn canvas bag tightly, trying to keep her steps straight and steady. Her heart pounded not only from nerves, but from the intense sound reverberating from upstairs, a baby's cry, continuous, relentless tearing through the still air. Riley, a 6-month-old infant whom no nanny had ever been able to soothe. Jennifer stopped at the foot of the stairs. The sound vibrated through each step, sharp as a knife twisting her heart. It was more than a child's cry. It was a plea, a desperate longing to be held, to be understood. It felt painfully familiar. Throughout her childhood, she had heard the cries of her younger siblings after their father's death, on long, bitter nights when her mother couldn't possibly hold all 4 children at once. Mrs. Evelyn, Adrian's mother, gently touched Jennifer's hand. "Go on, dear. Riley needs you." Jennifer inhaled deeply, her hands trembling slightly. She took each step up the stairs, repeating silently in her mind, "I can do this. I have to do this." The nursery door opened. Inside was a perfectly arranged paradise, a pristine white crib, neatly organized shelves of toys, walls painted in soft, soothing colors. But in the center of it all was a baby with a flushed face, mouth wide open in ceaseless wailing arms, flailing wildly, tiny body shaking from exhaustion. Jennifer froze. She wanted to rush forward, but a cold gaze from behind held her in place. Adrian Hale leaned against the doorway, hands in his pockets, dark eyes piercing her, as if reading every cell in her body. "You don't have to try too hard," Adrian said, his voice flat metallic. "No one lasts more than 3 days. You won't either." Jennifer turned, meeting his gaze. For a split second, she wanted to flee, but then Riley's cries ripped through the air again. She turned back, drew a deep breath, and stepped straight toward the crib. She bent down, whispering, "Shh, I'm here." Her hands, accustomed to holding and comforting since she was 15, lifted Riley securely. His head rested against her shoulder, his back cradled in her arms. Riley continued to cry, hiccups shaking his tiny chest. But Jennifer remained calm. She closed her eyes and began to hum softly. It was a lullaby her father had once sung to her mother, then her mother sang to her on stormy nights. A simple melody, just a few notes, repeating over and over like the patient footsteps of someone walking through darkness. Riley flinched, his cries still present, but slower now. Hiccups became gentle breaths. His tiny head brushed against Jennifer's shoulder, hands slowly unclenching instead of clinging tight. Jennifer swayed slightly, eyes misty. Memories of her youngest sibling surfaced. A winter night he had wailed from a high fever, and she had held him for 3 hours straight, singing and praying. Now the scene repeated itself, but in a luxurious room, with a child not her own. And strangely, the miracle still happened. The crying stopped completely. Riley opened his eyes, watery blue orbs, looking up at Jennifer, as if asking, "Who are you? How do you know what I need?" Jennifer smiled, her voice catching. "You're safe now." Adrian still stood by the doorway, motionless, his eyes wide. A familiar melody echoed in his mind. That's right, that song. Camilla, his wife, had sung it during her pregnancy. He remembered clearly. Every night she would place her hand on her belly, smile and hum softly, and Riley, still in the womb, would stir as if listening. Adrian's chest tightened. In an instant, the icy walls around his heart shattered. He didn't want to believe what he was seeing. Yet before him, Riley, the child he had thought incapable of peace, was now cradled in the arms of a stranger, calm as if he had never cried. Jennifer continued to sing, her gentle gaze never leaving Riley. She sat on the cream-colored rug, placing him on her lap, softly patting to the rhythm. Riley made small, innocent sounds, then smiled faintly. Adrian clenched his fists in his pockets. He couldn't remember the last time he saw his son smile. Perhaps before Camilla had passed. A hot tear slid down his cheek, making him flinch. He quickly turned away, swallowing everything down. But inside, a crack had opened deep and wide. Jennifer had no idea what was stirring within him. She only knew that for the first time since stepping into this cold mansion, she felt one thing: this place was not just a house of tears. It could just maybe become a place of laughter. Chapter 2. The Familiar Lullaby. Adrian's mansion grew even colder at night than it had been during the day. The glass walls reflected the city lights outside streets, glowing like rivers of gold flowing endlessly. Yet inside the house, darkness remained dominant. The pendulum clock ticked steadily, accompanied by the soft whistling of the wind through the cracks in the windows. Jennifer stood in the kitchen, wrapping a pale blue cloth around herself, Riley cradled safely within. The boy began to fuss again. In such a vast space, the cry of an infant sounded even louder, more piercing, bouncing off every wall, every pane of glass. She tried offering him the bottle, but Riley turned his face away. She attempted to place him in the crib, yet the crying only intensified. Jennifer patiently held him close to her chest, inhaled deeply, and began to hum softly. A simple melody, short, steady notes, like the rhythm of a heartbeat. La la, la la. Riley flinched. His cries weakened his tiny eyes lifting to her face. One of Jennifer's hands gently patted his back, the other securing the sling. She moved slowly around the warmly lit kitchen, humming in rhythm with her steps. In the living room, Adrian sat before his laptop. The screen cast a cold light onto his tense, stoic face. For months he had worked himself to exhaustion, as if numbers, contracts, and reports could fill the void left by Camilla. But tonight, amidst meaningless words, he heard something else. He stopped typing, a voice singing. Adrian lifted his head, his body freezing. This was no ordinary song. It was the very melody Camilla had sung during her pregnancy with Riley. He remembered vividly those evenings in their previous penthouse when Camilla would sit by the window, hands resting on her round belly, her voice singing soft, gentle notes. Adrian, then still naive, had smiled and said, "Do you think he can hear you?" Camilla tilted her head, eyes sparkling. "Don't you believe me?" He listens to every note from his mother, and he had believed her because at that very moment he felt her belly move slightly, Riley responding, even in the womb. Now, in the house empty of Camilla, that melody returned not from a recording, not in a dream, but through the voice of a stranger. Adrian stood up silently, moving toward the kitchen. Jennifer didn't notice him. She continued singing, eyes half closed, Riley pressing his cheek to her chest, his cries replaced by steady breaths. In the warm golden light, the scene looked like a living painting, a young mother holding her child, singing a lullaby of love. Adrian leaned against the doorway. His heart pounded. He wanted to stop her to shout that the song belonged to Camilla, only to Camilla. But his throat tightened, words failing him. Memories surged like a flood the day Camilla handed him a pregnancy test, trembling smile on her face, decorating the nursery together. Camilla at the piano, singing that lullaby while he was busy reading reports. Now, all that remained was memory. She was gone. Adrian closed his eyes. A hot tear slid down his cheek, falling onto his clenched hand. He couldn't remember the last time he had cried, perhaps at the funeral. From that day, he had locked away all emotion, building a fortress of work and control. Yet a single melody had torn it all down. Jennifer opened her eyes, startled to see Adrian standing there. Slightly embarrassed, her singing faltered. Riley wiggled as if protesting the pause. Jennifer quickly resumed bridging the silence with her lullaby. Adrian hastily wiped away his tears, trying to conceal them. He stepped into the kitchen, voice hoarse. That song. Where did you learn it? Jennifer blinked. Oh, it's a lullaby my mother sang to me and my siblings when we were little. Is there something wrong, sir? Adrian stared at Riley, his voice trembling. My wife, she sang that song too. Every night. Before she passed. Jennifer fell silent. The lullaby continued now, like an invisible bridge connecting two souls, one in loss, one in resilience. In that moment, She understood that beneath the cold exterior, a heart was still bleeding. Adrian turned away, not wanting her to see his vulnerability. But Jennifer had seen, and Riley, peacefully asleep in her arms, was living proof of a miracle. Sometimes a simple melody can unlock the most tightly sealed doors, Jennifer whispered, as if to Riley, but also for Adrian to hear. No child is impossible to soothe. They just need to be loved. Adrian said nothing. He returned to the living room steps heavy, yet the warmth of that tear remained on his cheek. And in his heart, the lullaby still played, reminding him that Camilla had never truly left. In the mansion, once filled only with tears and cries, tonight rang a familiar melody. And from now on, Adrian's life would never be the same again. Chapter 3. The First Laughter. The torrential rain outside the window streaked the glass like thousands of tiny fingers drumming a rhythm. The sky was gray and heavy clouds swirling, making Adrian's mansion feel even more oppressive. Inside the living room, the dim golden light from the enormous chandelier spilled onto the large rug where Riley lay surrounded by a colorful circle of toys. Adrian sat in his study, the door barely ajar. He tried to focus on his reports, but the sound of the rain and the subtle noises from the living room refused to let him. Occasionally, a short whimper from Riley echoed through the space, followed by a soft, patient voice, Jennifer's calm and unwavering as always. "Riley, do you want to hear a story about dinosaurs today?" Riley made a few coos, no crying, but no smile either. Jennifer laid the blanket on the floor, sitting cross-legged beside him, her brown hair slightly tousled from a busy day. Her eyes were tired, yet a persistent light gleamed within them, the light of someone who had comforted countless children and understood that consistent love mattered more than any skill. She picked up a dinosaur plush toy and held it high. "Rawr! Who's here? A dinosaur has come to visit Riley." Her voice deepened as she tried to imitate a roar. Riley's eyes widened following the toy. A flicker of curiosity crossed his tiny face. Jennifer continued puffing her cheeks, taking a deep breath and then, achoo! She pretended to sneeze so forcefully that she tumbled to the floor, arms flailing the dinosaur landing with a soft thud on her knee. She grimaced, clutching her leg as if in great pain. A moment of silence. Then, ha. A tiny laugh erupted from Riley. Jennifer froze, eyes wide. "That's right," the baby was laughing. Rosy cheeks, a curved smile, bright blue eyes sparkling with innocent joy. Riley laughed, truly laughed after so many days, filled only with tears. Jennifer choked back a sob, but didn't stop. She continued her antics, collapsing dramatically, pretending the dinosaur had caught a cold, sneezing repeatedly in a quivering voice. "Oh no, the dinosaur is sick. Can Riley help?" The laughter grew louder. Riley kicked his little legs, waving his tiny hands. For the first time, that pure crystalline laughter filled a room that had only ever known cries and wails. Adrian froze in his study. He had set aside his report and stepped closer to the doorway. Each laugh was like an arrow piercing the armor he had worn for so long. His heart trembled. 6 months long, endless 6 months since Camilla passed, and he had never heard his son laugh. In his memory, Riley's laughter had vanished, replaced by long, exhausting nights, unending cries, and Adrian's own helpless eyes staring at the empty crib. He had thought Riley had lost the ability to find joy, that his son only knew how to cry, to fill the void left by his mother. But now, with a few clumsy dinosaur antics, Jennifer made the impossible real. Adrian stepped out of his study. He paused at the threshold of the living room, not wanting to shatter the miracle before him. Jennifer continued performing, laughing, and pretending to tumble, while Riley's clear, bright laughter rang through the cold room. Adrian's eyes blurred. He blinked rapidly, trying to hold back the tears, but it was useless. His throat tightened. He leaned on the doorframe, feeling his body sink under the weight of a moment so simple yet so sacred. "Camilla, can you hear that our son is laughing?" In that instant, he saw Camilla standing in the corner, her long hair cascading a warm smile directed at Riley. The vision shone so brightly that he had to grip the doorframe to keep from falling. Jennifer looked up and noticed Adrian. She flinched slightly, then smiled as if to say, "See, Riley can laugh." Adrian said nothing. He just nodded softly, eyes glistening. Within him, a wall had cracked, and through the fissure, light streamed in. Jennifer bent down and kissed Riley's forehead. "Sleep now, little one. Tomorrow I'll tell you more dinosaur stories." Riley yawned, a smile still lingering on his lips, nuzzling into Jennifer's chest as he drifted off. Adrian turned away, afraid Jennifer might see the remaining tear, but he knew that from this moment, his mansion would no longer be just a place of tears. It had witnessed his son's first laughter, and that nothing could ever replace. Chapter 4. The Baby Carrier Moment. In the afternoon, the slanting rays of the setting sun streamed through the large kitchen windows. The space gleamed so clean, it seemed no speck of dust would dare settle. Yet within this almost sterile perfection, Jennifer created a scene that felt strangely intimate. She stood by the sink, wiping the marble countertop in smooth, even circles, while Riley lay snug in a baby carrier wrapped around her back. The pale blue fabric hugged her form, and Riley pressed his cheek against her slender yet steady back. He wasn't crying, wasn't fussy, just half closing his eyes and cooing softly. Occasionally, a tiny, quiet giggle escaped him when a strand of Jennifer's hair brushed against his face. Jennifer hummed softly as she worked, "La la, sleep well now." Her song blended with the gentle clatter of utensils and the rhythmic movement of her cleaning cloth, creating a tender, everyday symphony of domesticity. At that moment, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed. Adrian entered, just coming from a long meeting. His suit still sharply creased his face, heavy with fatigue. He froze at the sight before him. Riley, his son, wasn't in the crib or strapped into a safety seat, but being carried on a woman's back. "What the hell is this?" "Adrian!" roared his voice, booming through the kitchen like a hammer striking stone. Jennifer startled her hand, pausing mid-wipe, but she didn't turn around, keeping her calm rhythm. He wouldn't stay still, so I tried this. That way, he's close, and I can still get my work done. Adrian was struck dumb by her composure. He stepped closer, his dark eyes flashing with a mix of anger and anxiety. "Are you insane? He could fall. He could get hurt. This isn't a joke." Jennifer slowly set the cloth down, then carefully unwound a few layers of fabric so Adrian could see clearly. Riley was wrapped securely, his head resting on her shoulder legs, relaxed, his body perfectly safe. I grew up with 3 younger siblings. My mother worked all day, so I carried them on my back almost constantly. I know how to keep Riley safe. Adrian clenched his fists. He wanted to argue, to shout, and assert authority, but as he looked closer, he paused. Riley wasn't just safe, he was happy. His blue eyes sparkled with light, his lips curved into a radiant smile. He reached for a loose strand of Jennifer's hair, giggling. That laugh filled the kitchen, clear and resonant like crystal. Adrian stood frozen. The last time he had seen his son smile so brightly was when Camilla was still alive. His voice fell, breaking into fragments. How did you do this? Jennifer turned, so Riley faced him. The boy stretched out his hand toward Adrian, eyes shining brightly. No child is impossible to soothe, Jennifer said gently. They just need to feel love. See, he only needs warmth. Adrian swallowed hard. The kitchen was silent, except for Riley's laughter echoing through the room. A shock ran through his chest. Months had passed, filled with crying helplessness and fear that he wasn't enough. And yet now his son laughed radiantly, not with him, but in the arms of a stranger. Adrian wanted to be angry, to deny it, but the truth was undeniable. Riley was happy, and that made his heart ache even as it melted. Jennifer gently soothed Riley and whispered, "Do you want to try? Hold him, feel his breath. You'll see there's nothing to fear." Adrian hesitated. His hands trembled. It had been so long since he dared hold his son, afraid he wasn't skilled enough, afraid Riley would cry violently. But Riley's gaze, clear, trusting, broke through that hesitation. Slowly, Adrian reached out. Jennifer unwound the carrier and handed Riley to him. The moment the boy nestled against his chest, Adrian held his breath. Riley didn't cry, didn't resist. He rested his head on Adrian's shoulder, smiling widely, patting the vest gently with his little hands. Adrian felt as if struck by electricity. A sensation both unfamiliar and familiar swept through him. The warmth of a small body, a steady heartbeat, unconditional trust. Adrian looked at Jennifer. She merely nodded softly, as if to say, sea tears welled in his eyes. He turned away, not wanting anyone to witness his vulnerability. Yet inside, he knew this moment would change everything. This wasn't just an experiment with a baby carrier. It was proof that Riley needed love more than rigid rules. And that he, Adrian Hale, the cold, closed-off man, could still learn how to be a father. Chapter 5. Dad for the first time. On a weekend morning, sunlight streamed through the curtains, scattering a warm golden glow across the spacious living room. The rain had stopped, and the clear blue sky reflected on the tall windows, making the mansion appear brighter, softer, less cold than usual. Jennifer spread a soft mat in the center of the room. Riley sat on it, surrounded by colorful wooden blocks, his eyes sparkling, his mouth murmuring meaningless sounds. Jennifer smiled, sitting beside him, patiently guiding him. "Now, put this block on." "Very good, Riley." Adrian appeared at the doorway, no longer in his usual crisp suit, but in a thin sweater and simple jeans. He had canceled all his morning meetings, a decision that would have once seemed impossible for a workaholic like him. But today, he wanted to stay home. He wanted to be with his son. Jennifer looked up, surprised. "You're not going to work?" Adrian felt a little awkward, but nodded. "I think Riley needs me. Or rather, I need him." Jennifer let out a soft laugh, her eyes full of understanding. She made room for Adrian to sit on the mat. Riley immediately noticed his father. His tiny hands reached out, babbling sounds that weren't words yet. Adrian awkwardly picked up a red block and handed it to his son. Here, son. Riley took it, then dropped it, clapping his hands, his eyes lighting up with delight. Adrian tried stacking a few more blocks, fumbling, knocking them over. Each time, Riley burst into laughter, a crisp, joyful sound that made Adrian laugh along. "See," Jennifer said, "just by being here, he's already twice as happy." Adrian was silent, but inside he felt it clearly. That laughter, the clapping, it was for him, not for anyone else. A little while later, Jennifer stood up. "I'll make some tea. You two keep playing." Adrian nodded, turning back to Riley. The boy hugged a green block, eyes fixed on his father, then banged it on the floor. Adrian pretended to be startled. "Oh, you're strong." Riley laughed loudly, continuing the game. Then suddenly he spoke. "Dad." The small voice was clear and certain. Adrian froze. He blinked, his heart skipping a beat. What did you just say?" Riley tilted his head, smiling his lips, moving. "Dad." "Dad?" Adrian's body trembled. His chest felt like it would burst. He quickly pulled Riley into his arms, holding him tight. His voice choked. Yes, I'm here. Dad's here." Tears streamed down his face, falling onto Riley's soft hair. Each hot drop mingled with the child's innocent smile. Jennifer turned back, standing quietly at the doorway, still holding the tea tray. She watched Adrian hold his son, his shoulders shaking with sobs. Tears ran down a face so accustomed to sternness and coldness, yet now so fragile and powerful, it choked her throat. Adrian buried his face in Riley, whispering between sobs, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry for being away from you all this time. I promise, from now on, I won't leave you again." Riley didn't understand the words, but he felt the warmth, the trembling, and the overwhelming love from his father. He placed his tiny hand on Adrian's cheek, touching a falling tear, then giggled. Adrian lifted his head, looking at his son with eyes red and shining. "You just called me?" For the first time. Jennifer set the tea tray down, stepped closer, and whispered, "See, all he needed was a response, and you gave it." Adrian held Riley tightly, afraid that letting go would lose this moment. In his heart, the thick wall built from years of coldness had officially crumbled. The emptiness once occupied by pain and loneliness was now filled with a simple child's call, "Dad." And from that moment, Adrian knew he had truly become a father. Chapter 6: First Steps. The golden afternoon sunlight poured through the giant windows, stretching into a shimmering ribbon across the brown wooden floor of the living room. The space was silent, filled only with the cheerful chirping of Riley, who sat on the mat, his bright green eyes reflecting the sparkling light. Jennifer knelt beside him, a gentle smile on her lips. "Come on, Riley. Try standing up. Mommy Jen is right here." She placed Riley's tiny hands on the edge of the sofa. Riley wobbled, trying to lift his body. His short little legs shook like grass in the wind. He pushed, with his hands' swayed lips pressed together in a concentration beyond his years. Adrian stepped closer from a distance. He had just finished a phone call and hadn't even removed his headset. Seeing the scene before him, he froze, his heart racing unusually fast. He looked at Jennifer, then at his son, a strange mixture of excitement, anticipation, and anxiety rising inside him. "My son." Adrian's voice caught, unable to form the rest of the words. Jennifer smiled and turned to him, eyes encouraging. "You came just in time. Riley is about to take his first steps." Adrian moved closer and knelt a few steps away from Riley. He spread his arms wide, his voice trembling. "Come here, son. Dad's right here." Riley wobbled away from the sofa. One step. His tiny legs shook hands, flailing in the air. Jennifer held her breath, hands ready to catch him if he fell. But Riley was determined to move forward. Step 2. The room was utterly silent. Only Adrian's heartbeat echoed loudly in his ears. Riley staggered, then tumbled forward. But before he could touch the floor, Adrian lunged his wide arms wrapping around his son. "Got you!" Adrian exclaimed, his voice breaking in emotion. Riley laughed, his small arms hugging his father's neck, eyes sparkling like stars. His whole little body trembled with excitement. Adrian held Riley tighter, shoulders shaking. Tears fell onto his son's hair. "Well done. My son can walk now." Jennifer stood nearby, placing a hand over her heart to keep it from bursting. The scene before her was sacred. A once closed, cold father, now crying like a child while holding his son. She bit her lip, eyes misty, but her smile remained wide. Adrian looked up, his gaze full of emotion directed at Jennifer. In that look, she saw everything: old fears, remorse, and above all, a new blossoming love for his son. "Thank you, Adrian," whispered, voice trembling. "Without you, I would have missed this moment." Jennifer shook her head, wiping a stray tear. "You didn't miss it. You were here right when Riley needed you most. That's what matters." Riley laughed again, as if agreeing with Jennifer. He clapped his tiny legs, kicking in Adrian's arms, eager to continue his journey of discovery. The afternoon sunlight bathed the three of them, covering them in a golden glow. In that moment, the mansion was no longer cold. It became a true home, where a child took his first steps in his father's arms, where a man rediscovered himself, and where a young woman realized she had finally found a family to belong to. Chapter 7. The distance in the heart night had fallen. The city outside still shone brightly, but its light only highlighted the emptiness inside Adrian Hale's mansion. The giant glass windows reflected pale golden glows stretching across the polished wooden floor, like streaks of light slicing through the darkness. Adrian sat alone in his study. His laptop remained open, numbers dancing across the screen, but his eyes could read nothing. Before him stood a half-empty glass of wine, its deep red gleaming under the lamp's glow. The room was heavy with silence, broken only by the whistling wind sneaking through the cracks. He closed his eyes. Immediately in the darkness, Camilla's face appeared. Her long hair, her gentle smile, her eyes full of life. "Adrian, our child will need so much love. Promise me, won't you?" Adrian sprang to his feet, pacing the room like a caged animal. He remembered every word Camilla had spoken, every time she had cradled her pregnant belly and hummed that lullaby. And yet now the melody was coming from Jennifer, a stranger stirring something in his heart. "If I love her, does that mean I've betrayed you, Camilla?" The question cut deep, echoing like a hammer striking a crack. Adrian gripped his glass tighter. Images of Jennifer flooded his mind, her gentle smile, when Riley laughed, her tender gaze, while soothing their son, the steady hands that held Riley when he slept. Worse still, he remembered the moment she had looked at him, eyes seeming to see straight through the broken pieces of his heart. He exhaled sharply and sank into his chair. Part of him longed to surrender to his feelings, to believe that life could give him another chance at love. But another part screamed that doing so would be sinful, a betrayal of the wife he had lost. In the living room, Jennifer was still awake. She sat on the sofa, a children's book open on her lap. Riley slept soundly in his room, breathing evenly. Jennifer looked up at the towering ceiling, her heart heavy. Over the past days, she'd noticed Adrian changing. He laughed more, held Riley more, even spent hours playing with him. But at the same time, Adrian had begun to drift away from her. He spoke less. His gaze avoided hers. Smiles were reserved for Riley, rarely reaching Jennifer. She understood. She had seen him in fleeting moments, eyes filled with contradiction, the look of a man who both wanted to come closer and simultaneously wanted to flee. Jennifer closed her book softly. Her hand rested on her chest, where her heart was tightening. She dared not name her feelings, but she knew clearly that distance between them was growing, and there was nothing she could do to bridge it. In the study, Adrian sprang up again. He went to the cabinet and took out an old photo frame. Their wedding photo, he and Camilla standing in a garden of white flowers, hands tightly clasped, eyes brimming with happiness. Adrian gently traced Camilla's face. "I'm sorry." A tear fell, smearing the glass. He clutched the frame to his chest, afraid of losing the last warmth remaining. But at that moment, Jennifer's image intruded upon his mind. Slightly tousled hair, tired yet bright eyes, a soft humming lullaby. He shouted silently within Camilla, "What should I do? If I love her, does that mean I've forgotten you? But if I don't, then this heart will remain a barren grave." Adrian placed the frame on the desk and collapsed into his chair, hands clutching his head. He felt like a traitor, though he had done nothing wrong. Jennifer approached the study door, intending to ask if he wanted tea. But peeking through the crack, she saw him sitting there, head bowed, shoulders trembling. She froze. 1 second, 2, then she quietly turned away. Back on the sofa, Jennifer hugged a pillow to her chest. Her eyes shimmered but remained resolute. He's fighting his own heart, and I can only stand aside. Outside, the rain began again, tapping against the glass. In the sound of the rain, the mansion felt even larger, colder, exposing the distance between two people seated at opposite ends of silence. Adrian looked up, staring at the desk lamp. A vague determination stirred within him. He would maintain distance. He would not allow himself to fall. He owed Camilla a lifetime of loyalty. Yet deep inside, he knew that every time Riley laughed in Jennifer's arms, his own heart melted. And the very distance he tried to build was the thing that made Jennifer quietly sadder each day. That night, no one slept. One sat clutching an old photo, the other holding a nameless sorrow. Between them, the distance in their hearts grew in silence like an invisible wall. Chapter 8. Leaving. On an autumn morning, the sky over New York was draped in a thin layer of gray clouds, like a giant mourning veil covering the city. In the kitchen, Jennifer was feeding Riley oatmeal. The little boy laughed, tiny hands flailing, opening his mouth wide each time a spoonful approached. Jennifer chuckled, wiping the mess off his chin. The phone on the table vibrated. Jennifer's brow furrowed for a moment. The caller ID showed Emma, her elder sister. She hurriedly answered. Emma's voice trembled, panicked. "Mom. Mom is very weak. She can't eat. She's having trouble breathing. I can't handle it alone. You have to come back immediately." Jennifer froze. The spoon in her hand fell into the bowl, splattering a few drops of oatmeal. Her heart pounded, breath uneven. What did you say?" Is it that serious? Yes, Emma sobbed. If you don't come now, I'm afraid it'll be too late. Jennifer's throat tightened. She looked at Riley, grinning innocently, then around the bright, tidy kitchen. Two worlds collided suddenly, one of newfound safety and routine, the other her family waiting desperately. That afternoon, she knocked on Adrian's study door. He looked up, eyes still fixed on his laptop screen. I need to take some time off, Jennifer said, voice trembling. My mother is gravely ill. I need to go home to care for her. Adrian stopped typing. A flicker of surprise crossed his eyes before being replaced by coldness. How long? I don't know. Jennifer lowered her gaze. Maybe a few weeks, maybe longer. I'm sorry. I'll find a temporary replacement. Adrian closed his laptop and leaned back in his chair. His face remained impassive, yet a storm churned inside. He wanted to keep her to say that Riley needed her, that he needed her too. But the words caught in his throat. Instead, he let out a curt, "Your choice." Jennifer bit her lip and nodded. She understood that behind that cold exterior lay something unspoken, but Adrian never said anything. That evening, Jennifer packed her belongings. Only a few clothes, a few children's books she often read to Riley. She stood by the crib, watching Riley sleep, his rosy, innocent face, tiny mouth puckered. Little hands stretched in his dreams as if trying to hold on. Jennifer shed tears softly, kissing his forehead. I'll be back. Don't cry, Riley. The next morning, she stepped out with her bag. Evelyn hugged her tightly, whispering, I understand. You have to go. But remember to come back, okay? Jennifer nodded, tears streaming down her face. Adrian stood at a distance, his expression cold as ice. He simply said, good luck. Jennifer didn't respond. She turned away, her small figure slowly disappearing beyond the iron gate. The moment the door closed, heart-wrenching cries erupted. Riley awoke, screaming, hoarsely desperate. Adrian rushed to pick him up. Shh. It's okay, Riley. Daddy's here. But the boy struggled, reaching toward the now closed door. Tears streamed down his flushed cheeks, cries raw and piercing. All day, Riley wouldn't stop crying. Adrian carried him everywhere, nursery, living room, balcony. He sang, he rocked, yet the cries persisted, shrill and relentless. The boy refused milk, refused sleep, eyes, puffy voice, hoarse. Adrian was exhausted. Night fell, and he sat collapsed on the nursery floor, Riley still crying in his arms. His shirt soaked with sweat, hair disheveled. Riley's tears blurred across his chest. Adrian whispered, voice breaking, you want her, don't you? You need Jennifer. But it's not just you. Daddy needs her too. He held his son tight, tears falling onto Riley's cheeks for the first time. In the cold mansion, the sound of a child's crying mingled with the sobs of a man once thought unbreakable. Evelyn stood at the doorway, eyes red and swollen. She watched her son and whispered in her heart, finally, you've admitted it. Not just Riley. You need the love Jennifer brings, too. That night, Adrian stayed awake. Whenever Riley dozed, he startled awake, crying for the familiar warmth. Adrian patiently held him, but inside the emptiness grew into an abyss. And in that exhaustion, Adrian understood a simple yet painful truth. This house could never be a home without Jennifer. Chapter 9. Rediscovery. The narrow village road stretched before Adrian, flanked by fields of golden rice, the wind rustling through the stalks. His luxury car came to a stop by the weathered wooden fence. Riley in the back seat shouted in delight as he caught sight of a familiar figure through the window, Jennifer. Jennifer had just carried a basin of water from the well into the house when she froze. At the gate, Adrian was holding Riley. The boy immediately reached out for her, crying out to be held. "Riley?" Jennifer ran forward, wrapping him tightly in her arms. The moment he touched her familiar embrace, Riley stopped crying. His cheeks were streaked with tears, but a radiant smile spread across his face. Jennifer choked up, eyes glistening. Adrian stood there, breathing heavily, eyes fixed on her. I can't bear it anymore. Riley needs you. And so do I." Jennifer froze, unable to respond, when a dry cough echoed from inside the house. It was her mother, frail and leaning against the doorway, her face pale. Adrian stepped forward politely. "I'm Adrian Hale. I've come to help Jennifer take care of you. And your family, if you allow me." Her eyes widened in surprise, then softened with warmth. She nodded, lips trembling. "You are so kind." In the days that followed, Adrian stayed in the small town. No longer a cold businessman, he became a humble man, fetching water, chopping firewood, tending the garden alongside Jennifer's younger siblings. Riley followed him around, chirping happily, and whenever he grew tired, Jennifer would scoop him up. Family meals were simple but heartwarming. Adrian tasted wild vegetable soup and rich braised fish for the first time, dishes Jennifer prepared with all her heart. Surrounded by laughter and chatter, he suddenly realized this was what he had always longed for: a true home. At night, after Jennifer's siblings had fallen asleep, she stepped into the backyard for some fresh air. The sky stretched endlessly above, thick with sparkling stars. She quietly sat on the old wooden bench, hugging a pillow, her heart heavy. Adrian came out silently and sat beside her. For a long while, they simply gazed at the sky in silence. Finally, Adrian spoke softly. "Jennifer, I tried to push you away. I was afraid that loving you would mean betraying Camilla. But during the days without you, I realized the opposite. Not loving you would truly betray myself. And Riley." Jennifer turned to him, eyes shimmering with tears. "You." Adrian squeezed her hand, trembling. "I haven't forgotten Camilla, but my heart has reopened because of you. Jennifer, I need you, not just for Riley, but for myself. Please, give me a chance to build this family with you." Jennifer stayed silent. A gentle breeze lifted her hair. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but these were tears of release. She nodded, whispering softly, "I have loved you for a long time, Adrian." In that moment, Adrian leaned down, his lips meeting hers. The first kiss was tentative, like an unfinished vow, but it deepened gradually, becoming passionate and intense. Thousands of stars above bore witness to it. At the window, Jennifer's mother watched silently, smiling warmly. In her heart, a sense of peace rose. Her daughter had finally found her harbor. The town lay quiet at night, only the chirping of insects filling the air. But in the hearts of Jennifer and Adrian, a new melody had begun, a song of hope, family, and love, rediscovered after so much hardship. Chapter 10. A New Family. 2 years later. Adrian Hale's mansion was no longer the cold, lifeless building it once was. The huge glass windows now reflected warm, golden sunlight, and the hallways were no longer empty, but echoed with children's laughter and lively chatter. The once soulless kitchen now constantly smelled of freshly baked goods, simmering soup, and the essence of real life. Today, the garden behind the mansion was unusually lively. White ribbons fluttered in the wind. Long benches were draped with silk cloths, and roses bloomed vibrantly along the pathways. In the center stood an elegant floral arch, waiting for a monumental moment, the wedding of Adrian and Jennifer. The guests were few, but meaningful. On one side were familiar faces from the business world. On the other were Jennifer's mother and three younger siblings dressed simply but with eyes full of pride. Evelyn, Adrian's mother, sat in the front row, holding Jennifer's mother's hand, both smiling through tears. Music played, and Jennifer appeared at the petal-strewn aisle. She wore a pure white wedding dress, simple but breathtakingly beautiful. Her hair was neatly tied back, with a few soft curls framing her radiant, happy face. In her hand, she held not only a bouquet of white roses, but also the tiny hand of Riley. Now 3 years old, the boy wore a tiny suit, his sparkling blue eyes shining like stars, proudly leading his mother toward his father. Adrian waited under the floral arch, his heart pounding. As Jennifer approached, his eyes misted with emotion. He saw it all. The young woman who had once entered the mansion with trembling hands and weary eyes, and the woman today strong yet gentle, who had transformed his life into a true home. When Jennifer's hand touched his, the entire garden seemed to light up. The priest spoke in a warm, deep voice. "Adrian, hail do you take?" Adrian gazed into Jennifer's eyes, voice trembling but resolute. "I do, with all my heart." Jennifer responded, tears streaming yet smiling brightly. "I do too." Applause rang out. Riley cheered Evelyn, and Jennifer's mother hugged and cried. Adrian leaned down, kissing Jennifer beneath the floral arch, a kiss not only of love, but of eternal promise. 2 years after the wedding. In the living room, Riley ran around babbling as he read from a picture book. He paused beside the crib, where a newborn girl lay. She had silky black hair and slightly open eyes. Her name was Amelia, a second gift of love from Jennifer and Adrian. "Hi, I'm Riley," the boy whispered, gently touching her hand. Amelia waved her tiny arms, babbling in reply. Jennifer sat on the sofa, hugging a pillow, a contented smile on her face. Adrian stepped in, lifting Riley high, making him laugh loudly. He set his son down, then sat beside Jennifer, wrapping his arms around both. The mansion that had once been the lonely prison of a solitary man had now become a lively home, where a real family grew day by day. Evelyn came out from the kitchen, holding a tray of freshly baked pastries, her voice cheerful. "The pastries are ready. Come and eat, everyone." Jennifer's mother sat in an armchair by the window, knitting her warm eyes, following her grandchildren. She thought to herself, "Finally, my daughter has found the happiness she deserves." Adrian looked around the room, the golden light illuminating each loving face. His heart swelled, choked with emotion. He squeezed Jennifer's hand gently, whispering, "You've turned this place into a true home. Thank you for coming and staying." Jennifer rested her head on his shoulder, whispering, "We did it together. This is our family." Outside, night fell. The large glass windows no longer reflected loneliness, but glowed with warm light and echoed laughter. Adrian Hale's mansion had been completely transformed from a house of tears to a home of happiness. A new family had been written into existence through tears, sacrifice, and above all, love. The sunset cast a warm golden hue across the mansion's wide windows. In the yard, Riley laughed, running through the garden, chasing a wagging puppy. Jennifer sat in an armchair near the window, gently holding Amelia. The baby reached out her tiny smile like a new ray of sunlight. Adrian stood quietly, leaning against the doorway. He watched the scene before him. The laughter of children, Jennifer's gentle embrace, the warm light spreading throughout the house. In that moment, all past pain seemed to melt away, leaving only pure peace. He stepped forward, embracing both Jennifer and Amelia. His voice was low-choked, but full of happiness. "Thank you. We finally have a real home." Jennifer looked up at him, smiling, tears sparkling in her eyes. Riley ran in from the garden, hugging his father's legs, the entire family encompassed in a single embrace. The story closed not with tears of loss, but with tears of joy. True love does not distinguish between rich or poor. It has the power to heal, to rebuild trust, and to turn a cold house into a home filled with laughter,